Welcome to the Prevail Over Cancer Podcast, where we take a metabolic approach to help guide you on preventing, prevailing, and striving over cancer.
We are live on the Prevail Over Cancer Podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Lopes, incredible co-host, Keith Bishop. How are you, buddy?
Doing wonderful. And you?
I'm doing amazing. We had a little fun conversation before, so that's why we're kind of giggling here. But God, it's been amazing. This past week alone, I had 14. I think I counted 14 people reach out to me and literally thanking me for this podcast. So it just keeps growing. We keep getting more downloads, more views, and we're doing an amazing thing here. So I'm so happy that we're doing this. I'm so happy that I'm doing this with you because you're a bundle of knowledge. I keep trying to refer people to you. Before we get into this week's podcast, how's the transition to full-time cancer specialist?
Well, yeah, it's going very well, considering it's still kind of a challenge. So I have a couple of days at the pharmacy with a general practice, and then 3 days this month, at Prevail Over Cancer. So it's going fairly well. Trying to, mesh those calendars is good. My clients that I've had for over 24 years, are a little bit concerned that they're not going to have access to me, but they will. And so I'm readily available on the internet. It's easy to find me. And so I'm reassuring them that it's going to be good. So it's still overwhelming because, I'm just getting so many people wanting appointments and needing help. And so I have to break my lists and block out my days, and it's not allow time to
organization is going to be key for your success.
Yes, exactly. Yes. So, but it's going great. So for the most part, the people are actually upset because I'm not going to be in my general practice available, but then the other people in the new part of the practice are delighted and excited.
Awesome. So this week we are going to talk about a topic that's another one that has a lot of controversy behind it. It's one that's pushed very heavily through the oncology doctors, if you want to call it, and it's radiation treatment. And it's one that sticks home because I went through it. I didn't do the chemo route, but I did the radiation route before I did my surgery. And as I did it and as it passed, I regretted it from the beginning. Pretty much from the beginning, I was kind of hesitant. I felt like I was kind of backed into a corner. And I really want to talk about that because I think a lot of individuals that are originally diagnosed with cancer, they feel like their only option is to listen to what oncology says, and you get backed into a corner. And it wasn't forced on me. Let me clarify that. But it was put in a situation where it's like, if I don't do it, I'm not going to, the long term of this thing coming back is very high. And my educational level at the beginning wasn't as it is today. And I hadn't really immersed myself into reading and learning as much as I could about cancer. So I went that route, and they said I was young, I was healthy enough to handle a more aggressive radiation. So instead of doing the normal path, which is usually a 4 to 6 week path, I ended up doing 5 days intense. And as I did it, I'm going to go through my little story. Then we're going to talk about, I guess, everything. Emotionally, it was very hard because to me, the minute I started radiation, the first day I went in there, it was almost like a reality check. Like, I got cancer. I was in this ward where it was hundreds of people. And in this ward, it was one section all chemotherapy, the other section all radiation. And it was just room by room by room. And you see all these hazard signs, and you're sitting there waiting for your turn. And you go in there, and they're going through everything, and even the prep up to it, because it was a very targeted radiation. So I had to do 3 tattoos, which I'm going to have on me the rest of my life. These 3 dots, so they could target where the lasers would hit. And when I went in there, I remember doing it. It doesn't hurt. You don't feel nothing. It's more psychological. But when you got out, I just remember my wife was outside waiting for me. I got out. I looked at her, and I'm like, "Just go. Let's go." And I just walked to my car, and I sat in the car, and I literally just started bawling. Then I started crying, and I was just like, this is reality.
Yeah.
And it was like, it hit me that I think that was the first time it really, really hit me that I'm going through this battle. And I sucked it up. I did the next 4 days. And for everybody that knows my story, or the ones that don't, I had a colorectal cancer, and the tumor was in my rectum at that time. And I did the course. I did the 5 days. It was pretty intense. I was drained every day. There were long sessions. I was drained every day. My lack of appetite, but I forced myself to keep eating. We're going to talk also. They told me to stop every vitamin possible. They told me not to take any vitamins. They pretty much kept me away from all that stuff. Now that I know there's a lot of supplements I probably could have took to help me through the process, I didn't. And finished the process about 4 to 6 days after. I went to the bathroom, and this is kind of going to be graphic for our audience. I went to the bathroom and had to do number 2, but nothing came out. And I looked in the toilet and had drops of blood. I was like, what was this happening? About half an hour later, I started getting cramps, had to run back to the bathroom, feeling this pressure. I had to go, and it was just drops of blood. And this went on for about a week and a half to almost 2 weeks. The worst week and a half to 2 weeks probably in my life, where I was running to the bathroom 20 to 30 times a day, just dropping out blood. And I kept calling oncology. Finally, I got a hold of a radiologist specialist, and they told me what was happening was that the easiest way to explain was my insides of my rectum had a massive sunburn, and skin was peeling itself, and it had to rejuvenate and repeel itself. And the cramps and the pain that I was going through for the next 12 days was probably the worst I had. I couldn't eat. I didn't want to be at work. I was literally running to the bathroom every 20 minutes and just sit there, and drops of blood would be coming out. And until it kind of relieved itself and everything got cleared out in there. But nobody told me I was going to have that. They told me it was no side effects, very little side effects. Like, no one told me I was going to experience this. And fatigue was another one. I was drained. It took me about a good 3 to 4 weeks before my body really could start having energy again. And that was my experience. A negative one. Did it help me? They told me that percent wise, over the long haul, I had a higher, probably they said between a 12 to 14% better chance that the cancer would not come back doing the radiation. So they gave me that percent wise. And to this day, I still regret it. I wish I had done the surgery earlier and not held back the surgery. So I got diagnosed November 23rd, 2022. We did the Fed surgery February 16th. Why we waited that long is because they wanted to wait 8 weeks after, 6 to 8 weeks after radiation for them, this, as they said, to take effect and let my body heal itself before surgery, because my body wouldn't have been strong enough after the radiation. So that is my experience. So let's talk about your knowledge of radiation, what your understanding of it is, and what your feelings are with it.
Sure. The radiation, the purpose of it is to literally damage those cells.
Yeah.
But then it's our body's responsibility to get rid of those damaged cells. So my focus is to support the immune system, to ramp that up, to literally go in and gobble and say, oh, that's damaged. We need to get rid of that. Kind of like that sunburn.
Yeah.
The cancer cells are sunburned. There's collateral damage. Other cells are going to be damaged also. And so the body does have to heal that. There can be side effects, including just the fatigue. But main thing is going to be support that. I'm not a fan of it, but there can be the medical groups and treatments, and family members even can force us into decisions like that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if there's great statistics now, because I've been doing radiation for so long, as to how that 10, 12%, 15, 20% improved survival of a cancer. I haven't really studied that, but I wonder how well that really holds out.
The only thing I'm very skeptical with these stats is they're doing statistics on longevity. So they say, okay, somebody did chemo, somebody did radiation. 20 years later, out of all these people that did radiation and chemo, this is the amount of people are still alive, this amount of people are dead. But how many of those people are doing what I'm doing? How many people that are survivors have changed their life around? They're doing their saunas, doing their fasting, they're eating, they're taking their 17 supplements. How many are doing that? So are those individuals that are just taking their health to another level, or are they actual survivors? There's no way of knowing that, right?
Right. Yeah, there's so many variables involved in that. And so we really don't know. And, it's a panic time, going with that diagnosis. And so once again, it's, there is somewhat of a medical bullying type thing going on. They're trying to force you into doing things to follow the protocol. That's their job. Yeah. And so therefore that's where they're going to go. So it is a tough decision, whether to do that or not. And there's different kinds of cancers, and I have seen some results. My mother had brain cancer, and the radiation definitely did slow that cancer down, and gave her more time. So, there might be instances of it, helping. But it's a tough call, for that. But there are things that you can do to enhance it, enhance the effectiveness and reduce the side effects.
Let's talk about those.
Yeah, exactly. So once again, the immune system, that's a kind of a key. Well, actually, let's step back a little bit. Let's say from the treatment. Matter of fact, many years ago, when I first started getting into cancer, this is back in the early 2000s. Actually, I went to the University of Oklahoma. They invited me to a medical class, doctors, to teach them about what can be done to enhance the effectiveness of radiation treatments and cancer treatments. And even back then, we knew that omega-3 fatty acids like fish oil, actually has been known for many years, supplementing that, getting that into the body, making the cells softer. So the cell walls are made up of fats, fish oil fats, EPA, DHA are two of the 4 fats that are easy to get. And it makes the cells softer and more flexible, more normal. And then, this is kind of weird, but when that radiation hits the cells, they're actually maybe more easily damaged. So that's kind of a bad thing in a way. But if the cancer cells are more flexible, more easily damaged, then the radiation damages that. We get more damage to it. And then once again, the immune system then is going to go in and get rid of that. So omega-3 fatty acids are one of my key things I'm trying to lift up. Fish oil supplements work better than plant fats like flaxseed oil. A lot of people will take it, but it takes 5 steps of flaxseed. Our body takes a flaxseed into the body. And there's actually 5 different steps before our body makes EPA out of it. And so there's
I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah. So flaxseed oil is a plant. We aren't an animal. And so our body can make EPA from it. There's 5 steps to make EPA, and then EPA is used to make DHA.
Yeah.
And so if there's a nutrient deficiency or a genetic uniqueness about the body, each person's body, that can be a difficult thing. So plant fats won't work as well for most people as taking a fish oil supplement or eating fatty fish, cold ocean water fatty fish options. Trout is going to be basically the only other cold freshwater fish that can help out, and salmon that could be in the river too, are the only ones that have those good fats.
Yeah.
So that's number one, is actually trying to get those good fats in. You can still do the flax seeds and nuts and seeds, but it's not enough for me to rely on. So that's going to be one of the main things I'm trying to push, for that. And then there are some herbal type things that can help out, including curcumin. So curcumin from turmeric is an anti-inflammatory. So part of this inflammation, that sunburn that happens, creates that inflammation, which is great. Once again, let the immune system go get rid of it. But then the curcumin helps to decrease some other chronic or long-term inflammation processes that create the pain and that sunburn and various different things, that those inflammation chemicals actually can stimulate cancer growth too. So we have to have this balance. There are studies showing that curcumin can enhance the effectiveness of that treatment and then decrease and calm down the other collateral damage and inflammation in the body.
How aware with your experience, are individuals that work in the radiation departments with the knowledge of that? Because when I did my radiation, at that point, oncology passed me on to a radiation specialist, and this gentleman, all he did, I can't remember his name, but all he did was radiation. That was all he did. And when I sat there with him and we talked about options, supplements, and all that, and that time I really started immersing myself into reading and learning as I was about to start radiation. So I had already committed to it. I was really hesitant, but I wanted to learn as much as I could about it. And I went to him and I started talking about curcumin. I started asking him about vitamin C. I started asking him about vitamin E and all these other things. And he was just like, no. He kept saying, you don't want nothing that's going to strengthen your cells. You want to allow your body to kill them. In my mind, I kept telling myself, but don't you want to support your healthy cells? And I kept asking him, and he's like, no, I don't want you to be on no supplements. His exact words, no supplements.
Right.
He goes, at least for 2 weeks after, and he goes, preferably up to 4 weeks after. He wanted me to go through that 1 week plus another, so a total of 5 weeks. My body's trying to fight cancer. It's got this active tumor in it, and he's telling me for 5 weeks, stop taking anything good for it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the same time oncology was telling me, hey, eat whatever you want. Don't worry about that. Let the science work. Let's work with the treatment. So I was told from one expert to eat whatever I want, which is I was already eating somewhat healthy, and I'd already made drastic changes to my diet. I already started a keto Mediterranean diet. But then I have another gentleman telling me I'd already started curcumin. I already started my C's. I already started all these supplements here. And this guy is telling me, don't take any. And I actually didn't for that whole week I did it. And for a week after, I waited 2 weeks. I didn't do the whole 5-week protocol. After 2 weeks, I'm like, I told my wife, I got to start taking supplements. I was feeling so drained, and it did help start the balance of improvement of my health back. So what is their knowledge? Do they have any knowledge when it comes to this? Or are they just reading a textbook and following their protocol from 70, 80 years ago?
Yeah, they're just following the protocol.
Yeah.
And they are not studying and reading. The problem is that if they don't follow that protocol, and if something goes wrong, whether it be a side effect or somebody dies, and they didn't follow that protocol, now they can be sued.
Yeah.
So it's more like a CYA type issue. And so they're trying to cover themselves and protect a liability issue is probably the major thing. But they're like most people, they only have so much time.
Yeah.
So they are not always able to study and to learn unless they're motivated. And there's starting to be a few doctors, oncologists, and radiotherapists, that are starting to make a few changes and willing to step outside that traditional medicine model. But I mean, I see that every single day. I hear the same story, and that's not unusual. That's where we just have to make that decision ourselves, and we have to learn and seek help. And what are the few things that we can do to help out with that?
Very, very, very good. So let's talk about the negative part of radiation. Let's talk about some of the side effects. And I just wrote this down. I mean, this is actually one thing that when I agreed to doing the 5-day intensive radiation, short term, both my oncologist and a radiologist, or that's what you call them, sat in front of me together, and they both said, do you have children? And obviously I said, yeah, I got that time. My son was 14. My daughter was 16. And he looked at me and my wife was sitting in the room with me. He's like, do you guys plan to have any more kids? And I said, no. He says, well, if you do, that was the option for a sperm bank kind of thing, like the storage. And I said, and he's like, well, after this radiation, especially with the area we're targeting, your rectum, you're not going to be able to have kids ever again. And I was just like when somebody says that to you, and I had no plans to have for kids at this point, but when they do say that to you, it just takes a reality of how much damage this does to your body.
Right.
So fertility, another one, if they're targeting radiation around your chest, many cases, people start getting heart issues after. Around your lungs, people start getting lung issues. So it's doing one good, but how much damage is it doing to those areas or those organs around the radiation is the scary part.
I've seen that. And matter of fact, a friend of mine had a cancer when he was in his 20s, and they did massive radiation. And I don't even know what type of cancer it was, but massive radiation to treat that cancer in his bones and things like that. And then he ended up with significant heart issues and lung issues. And he would go in for, he ended up with heart disease, and they would go in to try to do surgery. And he had actually had so much scar tissue, they couldn't hardly do the heart surgery. And I mean, literally just going in, cracking him open and going in like a traditional bypass. We were trying to do that, and they couldn't. There was too much damage, and they couldn't get through to it. And it's all sticky and adhered together. So scar tissue burning, a common type thing. So the whole goal is, if a person is doing that, we do have to ramp up the immune system, get rid of that damage, and then help with the healing process, afterwards. And so, yes, there is a time frame even. So, same thing with chemotherapy. It's in the body for a while. If it's going to kill the cancer cells, we won't allow it to do that. So going with like vitamin C, glutathione, a common supplement a lot of people will take. But doing that like during the treatment, those may not be the best options. Even vitamin E, probably, matter of fact, we don't really use much vitamin E anymore. But doing that with that treatment may not be the best time to do it. Foods, we don't know of any issues with antioxidants from foods, but maybe from supplements might, according to theory. But that theory is being challenged in research.
I was going to ask you. There is a lot more research challenging, huh?
That's right. There is a lot of research on it, and so there's another one of my favorite supplements is alpha lipoic acid.
Yeah,
and alpha lipoic acid, actually may even enhance the effectiveness and actually kind of preventing that damage, but then actually enhancing the treatment on that. I think we have to be careful with that. I have to do research on each person and evaluate their treatment program just to make sure. So, so I'm not positive on that. I want to be cautious about that. But the curcumin, yes. Oh, and I think beta glucans. So supporting the immune system.
Yeah.
So like zinc, beta glucans, and melatonin are kind of like my go-tos during that radiation and chemotherapy. Or during radiation. So the beta glucans from, lion's mane and chaga, and up north, you all have that.
Yeah.
And reishi, shiitake, and maitake.
So a lot of the mushroom supplements.
Exactly. All the mushroom type supplements, or even more concentrated ones that have beta glucan extracts. They even wash out all the other stuff and they concentrate, they measure it and tell you how much of this beta 1,3-D glucan is in each capsule. Those type of things are my go-tos. I think those are extremely critical.
Yeah. I mean, it's so interesting, and maybe because I never truly researched it or really got into it, but it feels like it's only the last 3 years, 4 years, you're really seeing a push for all the supplements that are derived from the mushrooms, like you're saying, the Reiki. Like, is this something that you saw prior in your experience, or is this
long time?
So you did, huh? Okay.
Oh yes, and so there's been a mushroom product that I've known about for many years. Matter of fact, there's interesting studies they did. They exposed rats and mice to lethal doses of radiation, more like a nuclear bomb type situation. They exposed them to a deadly amount of radiation, and then they gave them a purified beta glucan. This is before the mushroom supplements came out, but this is a purified form of it. And the mice and rats that got the beta glucan supplement survived. The rats and mice that did not get the beta glucan did not survive. So after the exposure, I like to do it during, but even after the exposure is a great item. In fact, it's kind of in my bug out bag in case the world goes crazy. I've got beta glucans set aside.
I was about to actually say that. I was waiting for you to finish your train of thought, because I was going to jump in there and say, I'm going to buy that and put it out and save it at home. Because if the world goes to shit, interesting.
Yes, I got it.
You call it is actually called its sub. So I've never even heard this. So obviously, mushroom, it's called beta
glucan, GLUCAN. And so it's a purified form of the mushrooms, and they get it actually either from a mushroom or from a yeast, cell wall of yeast. And that's what mushrooms are, a yeast or a fungus. And they extract that out of the cell wall, purify it, wash away all the other things, and put it into a capsule. And so,
what are you looking at? What are you looking at dose wise?
So it takes about like a purified 250 milligrams a day on an empty stomach. If you take it with food, the digestive enzymes will kind of break it down. So it's more like an empty stomach. 250 milligrams. They also make up to 500 milligrams, but it's not 500 milligrams. It's not twice as good.
No.
They've even done studies, as far as that statement goes, it's based off of people in the military in a extremely stressful situation in a basic training. They gave some of those basic training Army people beta glucans, and then in the other group they did not give beta glucans. The ones that got the beta glucans did not break down and get colds and flu like the ones that
is this a supplement? Because I've never heard about this till you're talking about it now. Obviously I know the mushrooms, but would this be a supplement that you would add in, or say if I'm already taking chaga and I'm taking my turkey tail, would I remove those and just add this in as a replacement? Or
it'd be one or the other. Yeah.
Interesting. So I could take this instead of because I take now 3 mushrooms. So different supplements, I could replace one of these with the 3 mushroom supplements.
It could be an option.
Okay.
There could be other benefits to the mushrooms, and so more like a whole food type thing.
Yeah.
So it just kind of depends. So in more of a critical situation, I'll go with a beta glucan, and I want to ramp that up. I want to make sure I'm getting that active ingredient. And there's actually different types of beta glucans too. So there's beta 1,3-Ds and beta 6s, and
which is the best option?
Well, probably the beta 1,3-D. Okay, and so they even break it down and said the D stands for a particular shape or rotation in a chemical. And so the beta 1,3-D has been the one that's been around for the longest, and so it's been one I've been selling it since early 2000.
And is this something you take on a long period or a short-term phase?
You can. Yeah, you can take it for a very long time.
Do you personally take it yourself?
No, I don't. Not currently. Now, if I'm exposed to a virus infection, I will take it.
Interesting. If you are exposed to a virus, like what are you looking at period-wise? A week of it or 2 weeks?
Yeah, exactly. A week or two.
Just a week or your body.
Just kind of depends on how my symptoms are. If I feel like I have to admit, I won't take it unless I'm a little bit more concerned. Like when we had a previous virus, issue in the world.
Yeah.
I was taking it more on a regular basis, on a daily basis. I took it for over a year. And then after things calmed down, I realized that I wasn't going to die from it. And even though I had it, I didn't die. So I realized, okay, well, I've got this. And so I cut back. And then I probably haven't taken it now for a couple of years because I haven't felt that threatened, about it. But it's something that I do keep on hand for emergencies, and in my bug out bag, and at home, and so I can add that in at any time for an emergency.
What about, where's your mindset? Because I had read quite a bit on this, and there's tons of research on CBD oil during treatment. Is that just another immune system builder? How would you find that?
No, I don't know. I haven't studied that. And so, that's one of those newer items for us because
that was something the minute I started going through that discharge, whatever you want to call them, the healing process when I was bleeding, I research, and that was the moment I started my CBD oil. And then within about 4 to 6 days, it stopped. I don't know if that was just, it took a course of time and your body healed itself, or did that help the process? But that's something I did. And when I researched, a lot of individuals use the CBD oil during their time of chemo or radiation. So I just wondered if you had heard anything about that.
So I have studied it quite a bit with chemotherapy.
Okay.
Most of my clients that I get are a stage 4 cancer. They're already doing chemotherapy, and it may definitely enhance the effects of chemotherapy, but it may also, for some chemotherapy drugs, make them a little bit stronger or more toxic. And because it actually is even curcumin, but all herbs are actually more like a drug. They go through the liver, they can occupy the liver, they can actually make things a little bit more toxic, more difficult to get processed and get rid of.
Yeah.
So it definitely may help out. But what I'm going to do is, since you mentioned that, may write it down, CBD. I have actually a guide on my website. I have, it's called a Prevail Over Cancer Tactics downloadable guide. And I've got links going to different types of things, and including a link on CT exposures, MRI exposures, PET scans, how to detox and repair, and then also a radiation treatment guide.
Interesting.
So I'll research that and add it to that, and it's posted on my in the Learning Center. I've got a special thing actually. When you subscribe to my email list, there is a link that goes to a special page that has a lot of information. Since it's not really approved by government agencies, I just don't have it sitting quite out on the open. Yeah. And you get special access to it when you're in my email list.
So much. So you provide so much information. You help so many people, which is amazing. Let's talk about, there's 2 more things I want to talk about. The long-term, actually 2 things. So one, I wanted to talk about radiation. How long after is that? I don't even explain, but is that out of your system? I don't know the easiest way to explain it. How long does it take for your body for that radioactiveness to be out of your body? Some people say 4 months, some people say 6 months, some people say it could be into your body up to a year. Is that true? Or is it more of a short term?
No, I think it's actually, the radiation is more of a short term. So going through the body, and it's a kind of like a light beam, if you want to think of it that way. So it's going through the body. So it's not stored in the body, but it damages the body. And that's the time issue. Okay. And so the radiation going through the body, and, the side effects, think of it as a sunburn, that, like the bleeding you had, or some people will get a burn, on their chest where they're having treatment up here, and they'll get a burn, and that'll last for a month or 2 months or 6 months. One person actually even her first radiation treatment, she actually literally she got a wound immediately, and it's lasted for 2 years, and she's not healed from that.
Does she have diabetes? Does she have diabetes issues?
No, she doesn't.
No.
And so just a uniqueness about her body. So everybody's kind of different, but the radiation, unless you get a pellet, inserted, which is not as common as it used to be, but it used to be a prostate, they would insert seeds or little radiation pellets, into the prostate. Matter of fact, I worked in pharmacy school. Part of one of my rotations was actually making some of those pellets. Radiation pellets for treatment. And so they, inject those with a needle and put those in, and then those decay, and those may last actually for a couple of months. And so that can be a concern, that, for example, you can't you can't be close to your children, your grandchildren. You can't hug them because of that. But other than that, radiation is not stored in the body. It goes through, it does the damage, and it's gone. But the side effects can last for a long time. And so, it is an accumulative thing. So usually that first treatment's not a major type issue, but as time goes on, and if you have to go through one where you're going for like a month long, like 5 days a week, a month long, by the time you're finished with that, you're just exhausted because it's weakening your whole body. It's fighting infections and trying to get rid of those damaged cells, good and bad cells. So it's a very draining type process. The longer you do it, the weaker and more tired you get.
My surgeon, which is Dr. McAllister, I mean, he's probably one of the top surgeons in Canada for colorectal cancer. And after surgery, and like everything went well, and I didn't need my colonoscopy bag, and the surgery was cut in by almost an hour and a half, 2 hours, and everything went amazing. I remember a couple of days later, I saw him, and we were just talking about the radiation I went through, and I was telling him the story. And his exact words to me, he goes, "Jeff, you've done enough radiation for a lifetime." He goes, yeah. You don't want to put your body through any more radiation. He actually exact words, you don't want to put yourself through that radiation again because it's not beneficial. His exact words to me, which is pretty crazy because you do hear stories where people that do radiation multiple times on cancer.
Or some people, they've gone through a treatment program like for a month long, and then their cancer comes back later. And they'll ask the doctor, well, what about radiation? I said, sorry, we can't do that. You've had enough.
Yeah.
Because it statistically is going to increase risk of other
cancers. Exactly.
Because it damages cells. And if they're not repaired by your body appropriately, it's going to be a problem. And it can damage the DNA. And now that cell's just going to act a little bit different, increased risk of other cancers. So, yeah. So, it's a long-term issue. I don't believe it stays in the body long-term. The side effects are long-term.
The last question I have is, when I did research a lot about radiation, the long-term effect on your bones with osteoporosis. Where's your knowledge with that? It's like, does it take a toll on your bones that this is one of the long-term side effects, as well as later on in life, your joints, that area where the radiation targeted, you're going to have issues with it. And it's funny because I did it in my colorectal area, and I've always had, like, from very young, lifting heavy weights and trying to do heavy squats when I was 16, 17, my hips have never been the greatest, but I find now my hips and that area, my lower back, I feel like it's always, something's just not right there ever again. Could that be a long-term effect with individuals that do the radiation, is the osteoporosis?
Yes, well, it could be, especially in that area. And so
targeted
the radiation, they try to target it, meaning trying to, hit something here that is hitting this, and it's going right on through what's over here.
Yeah.
Okay. And although they're doing better, there's newer types of radiation treatments, protons and all this kind of stuff, where they're trying to get it, to go to one spot and stop, but it goes through. So it's got to go through stuff to get to that spot, and then it's going to pass right on through. So there's going to be collateral damage. Yes. And, in bones, bone marrow, whatever the hips are, there's a lot of bone marrow, and that's where the white blood cells, red blood cells, immune cells are all made in the bone marrow, and they're going to be damaged. And so therefore they're not going to work as good. Joints, cartilage, the ends of the bones where that cartilage is growing. So there could be definitely increased risks of just thinking about that extreme lower back or vertebrae, and hip joints.
Yeah.
As far as like joints being impacted, that is a possibility. And once again, so if you don't have enough of the natural antioxidants from your foods available, you're going to have an increased risk of problems later in life.
So overall, I think it's clear that radiation, you'd like chemo, you'd want to make it your last option.
Mm-hmm.
Because, one thing, like we talked about radiation, if you do it once, if the cancer does come back, there's a good chance you're not able to do it again. And second, it's we want to get our bodies as strong and as healthy as we can. And there's the side effects of the radiation could be a negative thing to our bodies over the long haul. And I went through it. So overall, your opinion on if oncology right off the bat, you find out and I'm going through this conversation with the individual that's I think we talked about them offline, husband and wife. The wife is going through breast cancer treatment, and they're from Oklahoma. And I told them to reach out to you, so I'm not sure if they have her or not yet. But she is stage 1 right across the board. And the minute she did the surgery, and as soon as she did the surgery, stage 1, low stage 1, like right across the board, they pushed chemo on her, and they push. She refused it. They were not happy. And then they convinced her to do radiation. She's going through radiation right now. And I'm like, stage 1 right across the board with surgery. Do you really need the radiation? Do you really need to do all these other things? So that is my question. When I actually I was talking to the husband, I'm like, why is she doing the radiation? And he's all against it, but she felt that oncology convinced her to do it for the long haul survivability. And when I hear somebody with a stage 1 just found it super early, did the surgery, removed the tumor, cleanly got out, and they do what they always say they do is they have the same, they said it with me. They're like, there's a good chance we didn't get everything out. And I'm like, it's that scare factor, right? They put that in your head. So overall, if you are an individual that's diagnosed with cancer, I say the first thing you have to do is speak to an individual like Keith, for the bare fact that if you decide to go that route, you want to learn every option you have. You want to know what supplements and diets and exercise, what needs to be done to keep your system as strong as possible, to have the least side effects, to get through it as best as possible, and to get the best benefits from it if you decide to do it. Anything you want to add to that, Keith?
Well, that's it. And it's a tough decision. You have to feel comfortable with it. So, if you've had it done, we just go on with life. Where accidents happen, things happen to our bodies. We just have to go on about our life and do it. If you're trying to make that decision, it is a tough decision. You have to feel comfortable with it. And, whether your family helps or not, I mean, there's several emotional, mental, spirit type things that you have to consider. If you don't feel comfortable with it, you have to be very careful about that, because that's going to just be in the back of your mind dealing with it all the time. And so, but if you do it, then you've got to take those supplements. You've got to, eat right and go into it and say, okay, this is what I've got to do to enhance that effectiveness and decrease the collateral damage that we've been talking about today, sunburn to bone marrow issues.
One last thing, and I thought about this right now. Everyone associates finishing treatment with being cancer-free. And you got this long life ahead of you, which is the biggest bullshit that could be fed to you. Because the reality is, the minute you finish that treatment, that's when your journey, you should have started before, but that's when your journey really starts. That's when you have to be like supplements, diet, saunas, fasting, everything that's it. And you always see everyone these videos. And I think it's incorporated in people's heads where it's like, I got cancer, I got to ring that bell. Once I ring that bell, I've made it. And that's all you see on social media. Ringing that bell, I've passed. And I'm like, when I finished my treatment, the young lady says, oh, do you want to take a video ringing the bell? Honest to God, Keith, I looked at her and I go, I ain't ringing that bell. My journey's starting right now. And I walked the hell out of there. I did not ring that bell.
Right.
And my wife was like, didn't you want to do? And I'm like, no. I go, that is the last thing. I go, now the fight's going to start. Because I had to prep myself for surgery. And in my head, I'm like, people associate treatment, and I think it's almost incorporated with those visuals of ring a bell, finish your treatment, you've made it. In reality, it is the farthest from the truth, because that is when your journey starts. And reality is that is when you really need to put your foot down on the ground and start running and making sure you do everything properly. So I don't know why I just thought about that, because it's that visual on social media of just ringing the bell, treatment. And I think a lot of people see that, see their friends going there, or see posts of survivors. So when they sit down and they're diagnosed with cancer, the biggest, scariest time of their life, and they're sitting in front of oncology and they say, okay, you got to do this treatment. I think that those videos lock in people's heads, where it's like, I got to do the treatment. I have no choice if I want to survive. And I want people to understand that is, if you decide to do that journey, that is a very small part of what has to be done for the rest of your life to survive.
So that bell is just the end of that round.
That's all it is. That's all it is.
Round. And then we go, we take that little break, and then we have to change the internal environment in our body.
100%.
And if we don't change that internal environment, that's going to creep in again, maybe.
Yeah.
And so we've got to, we can't just cut out that little piece. We've got to keep that from happening again, because there was something that allowed that to happen. So, we change that internal environment, diet, lifestyle, supplements, so critical. And, because we just don't want that to pop up again some other place.
I 1,000% agree.
Yeah.
This has been awesome. Like every week, tons of information. I appreciate you, Keith. I appreciate everything you're doing. I say this every week. Everybody I talk to, if you are diagnosed, somebody that's diagnosed, somebody that's going through treatment, it's the scariest time of your life. But an individual like Keith, especially Keith, will make that journey so much more easier, so much more understandable, and help you through the process that it's going to make this scary time a lot simpler. He'll guide you, tell you what to do, and teach you and educate you. And I think that's a huge part, is learning about your body, learning about what is going to work for your body. And this is not a 6 month, you're hoping that this is a 30, 40, 50, 60 year journey of survival. And everything you learn is going to help you get there. So get a hold of Keith. Get a hold of Keith, everyone.
And thank you, Jeff, for putting all this together, the time and the money that you do, to share this information. Gosh, it's just wonderful.
I appreciate it, buddy. Okay, till next week, buddy.
Okay, great. Okay, thanks.
Thank you, brother.